Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking God and Politics with Mark, Mike, and my beautiful wife, Denise. Mark, a lot has taken place since the last show.
Oh, yes. Another week, another crazy day in politics, man.
Yeah.
Uh, our last episode I labeled It's All for Show. Um, I still kind of think that. I still think that, the whole Iran Israel thing is, at least from Trump's standpoint, is still kind of all for show. I think Israel's serious about it. They want a regime change big time. I'm just hoping that the uniparty will say, fine, if you want that, go do it yourself. But only time will tell on that. But there has been some interesting things happen over the week, no doubt.
Well, since the Uniparty is run by the Jews, it's, I don't know if that's going to happen. And it's all funded by AIPAC and Rothschild. But, it is interesting that Trump made the decision that he made. I still think it was a bad decision. And I think a false flag is imminent. Like, they're not going to give up on this. Like, they are not going to. This was the ace up their sleeve, was Trump's Zionism. They've got him cornered. They're going to force him to come all the way out or expose that he isn't a Zionist. I mean, because they got to have World War III to really, really pull this stuff off. So I'm looking for a major Muslim terrorist attack. And of course, the Muslims aren't real bright because they issued this, official Muslim, religious attack on Trump to assassinate him. So that wasn't real bright because now they're ripe for a false flag. But of course, they want that because their eschatology is to, bring in the Mahdi and their version of the second coming of Christ through an end time holy war. So of course they don't mind, getting in a war with us and dying for their faith because that's just what they do in their jihad. So it's a really bad combination with them saying they want to kill Trump and Israel just gone, oh man, we got the false flag. It's right here on a platter for us.
Well, I think they'll set it up. I mean, last week or week before last, Iran sent it to the administration and said that here Israel was going to set up a false flag. Here's what we saw. Now the news, I think it was Bloomberg that actually broke the story, said that it was a friendly country that gave Iran the intel that Israel was going to try and do a false flag here in America to get us to go to full on war with Iran. And Iran, of course, gave it to the administration to see that Israel was going to do it. And then, of course, right after that, that's when Trump came and dropped the F-bomb and said they're both crazy, which they are. There's no doubt about that. And then what was it? Yesterday, the Shah came out and basically said God will take care of us, and that we're gonna strike back at the evil empire. So I don't know. We'll see. We just need to stay calm.
Yeah, we do. But we have a history of falling for these false flags, whether it's USS Liberty, 9/11. So I hope that there's enough in our consciousness as a nation to where we're prepared for that, and we have common sense at this point to figure out, oh, this is another false flag. Yeah. We're not going there. We're still not going to war. You guys have your holy war over there and knock yourself out. We do have a video, but I can't pull it up and make it play. But there's this one rabbi that's admitting publicly that according to the Talmud, they're supposed to create a war between Christians and Muslims, and that they're basically boasting that we make them fight each other to destroy themselves. and we gain more and more control. And, it's funny, Mark, because, I put in Grok or even Chat GPT, my article on the Talmud and stuff, and it comes back and says, oh, this is taken out of context. This isn't right, blah, blah, blah. And yet I have all these videos on X of rabbis themselves quoted these passages telling you what they believe about them. Yeah, we're supposed to exterminate Christians. Yeah, we're supposed to depopulate them. Yeah, we're supposed to be a constant war with them. Yeah, they're going to be our slaves and worship us. We just saw one where it says that we're supposed to worship them and be a slave to them. And it's just like, man, a living. It's like before they made it illegal for Gentiles to read the Talmud, but then once it got translated and got on the internet, now they take a play from the playbook of the Muslims and say, oh, well, that's out of context. You're just taking it out of context. It's like, no, not really. We know what it is.
Yeah. Now I got in an argument with Grok and realized, what am I doing? I'm arguing with an AI.
I love how it's trying to make it real personable. Like I made the mistake of saying, oh, that was a good job or something like that. And he came back and said, oh, thank you, brother. And I'm like, whoa. Are you gonna buy me a drink first? Like, what's going on here? This is
weird. No, I had a few back and forths, and it was like, well, there's no proof of that. And then so I put the proof in, and then Grok was like, well, no, it technically is not that. And so I said, well, it's this. And I was finally like, wait, what am I doing? I said, I'm done.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of funny. No, there's actually, I got a clip here of, so the Israel's ambassador to the UN talking about how he'd love to see the UN building no longer exist. Let's check this out.
Let's do that.
מה אתה אומר, גלעד? מטה האו"ם, בניין האו"ם, הנה הבניין המפורסם. מה אתה אומר, גלעד? הבניין המיותר. באמת, ייסגר ונמחק מעל פני האדמה. עד כדי כך. מטה האו"ם, בניין האו"ם, הנה הבניין המפורסם.
I agree with him. It's a useless headquarters. The UN is useless. No question about it. I wouldn't go as far as saying wipe it off the face of the earth in the context that he's talking about.
Well, I don't know. I think that's a dialectic because, again, Rothschild and Rockefeller pretty much, and Kissinger started the UN. The UN is a globalist, enterprise, but they can be very critical of Israel, but I think that's kind of a false back and forth, to be perfectly honest, because the UN can't do anything, they can't do anything to Israel, especially since Israel pretty much runs it through the Rothschilds.
Yeah. No, the UN has kind of lost its whole point, after the Soviet Union fell, there was no real point of the UN. I think, if we would kind of back out of the UN and just totally get out of the whole thing, I think it would kind of crumble in on itself.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
Well, let's see. We could we could talk. Let's see. So I don't know who caught it, but Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene Tucker did an interview with her, man. I thought was great.
Yeah, bring that up if you can.
Yeah, I've got a clip here. And I've got, in fact, right before this show started, I finished the interview. And I'll have something to say after we watch it. But
I don't know how many years it's been.
Since I've become a member of Congress since 2021, we have voted on 22 resolutions for Israel, 22 of them. all kinds of resolutions, denouncing anti-Semitism, supporting Israel. We voted on 22 of those. We never vote on resolutions proclaiming great things about America or defending certain Americans or defending Americans in general. But we have voted on 22 resolutions in the House defending Israel.
How many of you voted yes on?
I don't know my exact record. The last one I voted no on, and then the one before that I voted present because I just started getting sick of it.
Well, that's kind of it. I mean, I've always noticed this, certainly in the last, I don't know how many years, it's been a while, where Republicans in the Congress are, always talking about Israel. I'm not against Israel. I've always liked Israel. So I haven't really noticed it. Okay, fine. Love
Right.
Israel, love any country, whatever. But it feels like something has changed. Like why? And clearly it has for you. What is that thing?
Well, I think
I'm an anti-Semite now.
the point where it's so obvious all the time in everyone's language, the social media posts they put out, the statements that they make. They have to proclaim Israel. They have to proclaim their faith and loyalty in Israel and how Israel is our greatest ally. And it's a statement that has to be made over and over and over again, to the point it's becoming like, wait a minute, what about our own country? What about our own people? And we have so many problems here in America. And we talk about this all the time, $37 trillion in debt. Just like you and I were speaking before, our kids' generations. My kids are 22, 25, and 27. And our children's generation, they can't afford rent. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford insurance. They can't buy a new car. They can't find a good paying job. They're living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, credit card bills stacked up. And they literally look to the future going, how am I ever going to realize the American dream? And it seems hopeless for them. But then in Congress, everyone is chasing and pursuing and proclaiming their loyalty to a foreign country.
Yep.
Well, and I think it's not like our government has all of a sudden jumped on the Israel bandwagon. It's been there, like you've said, for a long time. But I think what they're doing is these politicians are falling over each other to go kiss the wall, to go get photo ops with any rabbi they could pull off the street in DC and totally, proclaim their loyalty to Israel, whereas before it was kind of under the covers, but now it's almost like the LGBTQ movement. It was kind of in the background and it didn't really hear it, and then all of a sudden it's in your face every second of the day, every show, every movie, and then of course you got the month of June is Pride Month, and it's just they every time overplay their hand to the point that you finally kind of see through the veil and go, and that's what's going on. And that's what she's talking about, is they just overplayed it so much that now normal people are like, okay, I'm getting sick of this because we've got all these problems, but yet here we go supporting Israel on everything. And I think the neocons and these evangelical
Zionists.
politicians, they've overplayed their hand, and they're being ridiculous. I saw that photo recently. I don't know how I missed it, of the governor of Texas, which he's just done a good thing. He's made gold and silver legal tender in Texas, and Texas is creating its own coin backed by Bitcoin. And I'm like, man, that's great. They're doing great things. And then I saw this picture of him kissing the wall, putting on a yarmulke, and it's just like, what? Yeah. And then I don't know if you caught Ted Cruz and his debacle. I know we talked about it last time, but I mean, it's just like they're overplaying their hand and they're looking foolish. But I think that's what God's doing. He's letting them play this thing out to the point that normal people are just like, all right, I'm sick of this. This is ridiculous. And by the way, that interview, she goes on to talk about, of course, look, and I love her. I agree with everything she said. Now, she is definitely a big supporter of Trump, which fine, whatever. I don't hate Trump. But she's definitely still toeing the line for Trump. And she kept saying revelations. and it just annoys me. She's kept saying Revelation. But
Oh
she's,
no, what was she trying to say about Revelation?
she's a country girl. Well, she was saying, she's like, I don't see in Revelations where it talks about America. And I've read the Bible. She goes, and I don't see where it talks about America. And so why are we so caught up in this end times thing when it doesn't even talk about that? And I'm thinking,
That's what she
even
said.
in her biblical ignorance, she's seeing
You've seen
Right.
the
through it.
reality. Yes. And it's great. And I loved it, except she said every time she say Revelations, it's like,
Revelations.
It's like Trump
that's
saying
okay.
2 Corinthians. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, that was his first, the first time he read it.
I'm gonna appoint Paula White, and then it's all about 2 Corinthians. All right, babe,
Yeah.
you got stuff to say about that whole thing.
Not really about MTG, other than I guess she's proposing a bill that she ran past President Trump that once her bill is passed, it would force all the states to conduct a census, and you would have to prove your citizenship. And if you could not prove your citizenship, then you would not be counted in the census. And that would force the states to clean up not only their voter rolls, but to do the redistricting as well. So that would be great if that passes. However, there's a whole lot of controversy with this big, beautiful bill that just passed the Senate, I think, like an hour ago?
Yes.
Where the parliamentarian took out the provision or made a provision that the part of the bill that would take
illegals off of
1.4 million illegals off of Medicaid then had to be passed by 60.
Mm-hmm.
A vote of 60 had to occur instead of 51. So that begs the question, who is the parliamentarian? What role does the parliamentarian have in any of our bills? And is this a holdover from Biden? If it's a holdover from Biden, why didn't John Thune get rid of her?
Right.
There's just a whole lot of questions there that need to be asked and need to be answered. And probably just a whole bunch of stuff that has gone completely under the radar by someone like the two of us who really don't know the inner workings of DC and don't know the inner workings of how the Senate and the House actually really work,
Yeah. I was kind of just hitting that for a second, but to kind of look at that to see specifically what happened. But I thought it was weird that, because when I saw the news caption, I thought, okay, the bill's passed, and the Uniparty just basically said, okay, let's get the bill done, and we'll go ahead and take out that provision so we don't slow this thing down anymore and let it go. But you're not saying that.
No, the parliamentarian said that that particular part of the bill had to be, that particular part of the bill had
which
to be
is
passed,
a huge part.
Which is a huge part, especially given the MAGA mandate, but it had to be passed by a vote of 60 instead of 51. So it needed a super majority rather than a simple majority at that point.
So we can still use our tax dollars to fund all these illegals, which, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, even Marsha Blackburn posted something last night about how she wasn't going to approve. And I like Marsha. She stepped up on a lot of issues that I didn't think she would. Hopefully she's sincere about those things. I'm taking the side that she is. But I had to reply to her when she said, I don't want to support illegals and all of that. And I said, well, that's the whole reason they're here, because if you really want to stop all this illegal immigration, all you got to do is get rid of welfare.
Right.
Every single piece of federal legislative welfare, get rid of it, all of it. And I promise you, hardly anyone that will come into this country unless they want to, based on work. All this flood of illegals coming in, get rid of the free stuff, and you don't have to worry about it.
So illegals are here it's called replacement migration. It's run by the UN, the World Economic Forum. There's all kinds of Jewish NGOs behind this.
Mhm.
Even Jewish organizations take over and mask as Catholics to do all this. And there's a reason for that. It not only destroys us economically, which they love, so they can take us over eventually militarily, but it destroys our national identity. And on that point, I want to share something here real quick. This is something from Joel Webbin. He says, number one, the state of Maine, as recently as 1921, determined that America was a Christian land. They also determined it was illegal to publicly blaspheme by saying Jesus Christ was a fool. Number three, they further believed this to be a Talmudic and Jewish propaganda, and it should be illegal. And he brings up the whole bill there, and he says, you know, it's interesting that we started out as a Christian nation, and there was no separation between church and state. If you look at the historical context of it, we were trying to separate ourselves from England, who had a national religion.
That's
And
right.
that is what the context in which we were trying to separate from, as far as
That's
the
right.
as far
Well,
as the
and well, people.
hang on. We weren't declaring that we want Muslims to come over here and invade our country, and we want Buddhists to come over here and invade our country. That's not the point of the First Amendment and the freedom of religion at all. It's not the context. It's not the context of our founding. I know a lot of people try and say, "Oh, well, you know, they weren't real Christians." Blah blah blah. I don't see that, man. I mean, I've seen the Puritan movement. I know what they were fleeing from, and you know, Joel Webbin and guys like Gary DeMar, they have really good documentation on this. And Mark, what it shows me is that why is Israel allowed to have a national identity, Jewish, Talmudic? You know, they have borders. No one else is allowed in. Christians aren't allowed to come in. You know, all of this stuff to maintain their nationality, but yet they're responsible for all this replacement migration and weakening the Gentile countries, which, again, I can pull up rabbis all the time admitting that they do this replacement migration for this very purpose.
I have no audio. You might want to verify
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah. So
I think it's on their part.
So let me ask a question, but I will say this. A lot of people believe that the separation of church and state is in the Constitution, or they say the Declaration of Independence has. It's not in either one of those. It was never implied in the sense that they understood who they were. It was exactly like you said. It was to make sure that they didn't set up a government that was based on what Charles the whatever did, as far as, you know, making it based on the church. And that was the difference. Now, we could argue.
Real quick, time out for just a second. Do we not have audio? We have someone saying that they can't hear us. Is that just one person, or is there more than one person? Because if it's more than one person, it's a problem on our end. If it's not more, then it's...
Yeah, let me look here.
Because our audio is working fine between us, so I'm not sure.
Why don't we block this?
What? Haha, look at these.
Why don't we block this person?
This guy's just a
He's
spam.
an
Audio's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Audio's good. Okay. Yeah. That's not really implied. Now, yes, I've read some things where they're saying that church and state is implied. You can argue that it's not. And also, Thomas Jefferson and some of the founders, were they deists or were they true Christians? You can argue that. But at the end of the day, they showed they're all, you can look at any of, even the recent history books you can read, they talk about it was a Christian nation. There's no real argument there. I've done that with people, and it falls flat.
Right.
Well, let me pull up something here because I think I like Nick Fuentes, as you know, and he's got some good stuff to say on this too.
This is functioning like a classic parasitic organism. Israel gets stronger, more nationalistic, more developed. It gets richer. Jewish identity is thriving in Israel. You go to Israel, you're in a Jewish state. It's a big Jewish country. And they're all Jewish, and they're proud to be Jewish, and there's different types of Jewish people. And they're resurrecting Jewish culture and scholarship and Jewish religion, Jewish faith. And they're asserting it forcefully, chauvinistically. They're so proud. And our country is dying. It's dying, literally. It's being killed. There are fewer white people living here than in centuries. No one's proud to be white. No one's proud to be an American. This country is for everybody. People come here and they spit on the ground. People come here and they take welfare. People come here and they commit crimes. They take over apartment complexes. People come here and they steal from Walgreens and then sell all the goods right outside, and the police don't even act. Nobody's proud of our cities. Nobody's proud of our country. And who would be? It's a joke. And we're sending money to them. And they live here. And they're mad that we're not giving them more money. They live here, they have kids here, and they're proud to be Israeli here, but we're not proud to be American in our own country. And no one can run on a platform that is exclusionary, God forbid, of anybody. And no one seems to be taking that seriously. Nobody seems to be the slightest bit bothered by that. Well, I'm bothered by that.
Yeah, Marjorie actually during the Tucker interview says similar things. She's not as forceful in speaking in terms of Israel, but she basically says the same thing because it's true. And it's because, and she nails it on the head. She said that it's because the MAGA movement is not doing what it said it would do.
Mm-hmm.
Now she did, praise Trump for pulling, once he dropped the bomb, pulled out, didn't do any more. But what the whole campaign was about, how these Republicans got elected, and she talks about how they ran on this MAGA movement. They knew how to speak to the people, and then as soon as they got into power, they went back to their neocon ways. And she's absolutely right. And almost all of them, except Massey and her and a few others, ran. The rest of them are toeing the line that the neocons have been doing for years. And so here's what happens is you get people, because she even said, my office is flooded with phone calls. She goes, liberals, like, Democrats, not necessarily full-blown liberals, but just these blue, what do they call them? Blue dog Democrats. Mm-hmm. She goes, I'm getting phone calls from hardcore libertarians, all these people calling me and saying, thank you for saying what you said about defending and standing up for our country, doing what MAGA should have done. She goes, I get all these phone calls.
Right.
And then all these other Republicans that they voted for in the hopes they do the same thing, do the exact opposite. So then what happens? What happens is then you get people who want to something different, and they go after, and this is, look, in New York City, I don't really care. I don't live there. Do what you want. You want to burn that city to the ground. But I'm telling you, this is what people will turn to.
Distribution of wealth. All of God's children in this
So when people say democratic socialist, right? And I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors. And we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
So when people say,
So now, I don't know that he's going to get elected. I think, a lot of people are saying that Adams is going to win because this guy's just over the top. He's wanting to make, government run grocery stores and all kinds of stuff. I don't know, but I can tell you, people went over, Democrats went over to this side and voted Republican. Now they're not doing what they said they do. So they're going to go and turn to some guy like this. And I think this is the largest city in America. I think this is indicative of what could happen to the United States. Now, of course, in the South and other places, it's going to be a lot more difficult, but you're going to see people go, okay, we tried it. It didn't work with the whole MAGA movement. So now we're going to try this. And I think we run a serious risk if people, if we don't, people like us, we can't get these Republicans out of office, these neocons, these fakes, then we're going to run the risk of having more of these type of people on the Democratic side, because obviously the Democrats are tired of what the party's doing. So they're not going to come back to the right. They're going to go even further left and, vote for people like this. I think that's the risk we run if we don't address, in the next, next year in the election, and start getting rid of some of these neocons that want to pretend like they're MAGA, but they're not. And Trump even came out and was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to get rid of Massey."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's crazy, and they're not. I mean,
he thinks he's going to beat him by 25 points. I think and then Elon Musk says that he's going to fund Massey.
Yeah, he is, and he's going to come up with a third party, which a lot of people are like. And I was talking to a guy last night, and he said, "Well, we don't need a third party. We just need to get rid of the neocons and the fakes that are in the Republican Party." And I said, "I agree, but I don't know that that's going to be successful." I said, "The one thing that a third party can do, if with someone's money like Elon, is it causes gridlock." Because if you notice, when the federal government is pretty much equal in the House and Senate with Democrat, Republican, they don't ever get anything passed. That's what you want. You want gridlock at every level. When people complain that the federal government's not working and they take too much vacation, I'm like, great, take it. Take it all. I don't want any laws passed. If you're not getting rid of laws that exist, don't pass any more. And I think a third party, now I'd love to see, a more libertarian, Elon, I think, is calling it American Party. Hopefully it's the American Liberty Party. But I'm all.
Hopefully it's not the American Transhumanist Technocracy Party.
No.
Because that's kind of where.
Actually, it's fine. Introduce a third party. I don't care, because once you introduce a third party that is legitimate and has enough people, all it's going to cause is gridlock. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want a Leviathan the size of our government to just be so locked down that no one can agree on anything, that nothing gets passed, and let the states handle
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
The way the states were constitutionally designed to handle things in the first place.
I don't know how to get rid of the neocons, because the neocon is just a term for Jews. Neocons are really the Bolsheviks, Jews, communist Jews that kind of came over here, and though they're not fully promoting communism, they are that war hawk. They are constantly defending Israel. So I don't know how to get them out, because the neocons are tied at the hip with these Zionists, which Trump is, tied to the hip too. So I don't know how that's going to be the big one right there. I don't know how it's going to happen. But, I hear oh, we want Laura Trump, and I'm like, no, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
And then Roger Stone was like, what about Eric Trump for president? I'm like, no, we're over it. We don't want any more Zionists. No more Zionists, period. I mean, at some point, this is where the MAGA movement is going to move. And we're seeing a great awakening in that area. And I just pray that it keeps rolling, man.
Yeah, you see it on X, absolutely. Like Nick Fuentes and all those guys are gaining momentum. They are gaining momentum. And hopefully
even Alex Jones is coming out and starting to talk about it. So to push him out and start talking about it.
Right.
Something's going on.
Yeah. And hopefully, 3 more years, enough people will see through this that we can get a candidate that isn't, because that's another thing that that socialist Democrat in New York said. He was the only one on stage when they were debating that said, I don't worry about, all of them said, oh yeah, we stand with Israel. We're gonna stand with Israel. And he goes, no, I stand with the people of New York. And it exploded. But he was the only one on stage that said that.
Yeah, but he's really a Islamicist, so he
no,
doesn't.
I get it.
Right. I know, but he knows what to say, obviously. So
right, and the people move that way. Yeah, especially in New York. No offense, sorry. No offense to anybody from New York. I look at it, New York City at least. I look at it like Southern California. It's something in the water, just mess you up if you stop drinking the water. Maybe they put something in the air, but I'm thinking it's in the water.
All right, Denise wanted to talk about
so we can talk about some of stuff that RFK Jr. is doing, and there's some good stuff and bad stuff. Like I have heard recently, on the bad side, that I think by the year 2030, he wants everyone to wear something that would give your vital signs and your blood sugar.
Wanted to find the answer, which is to compare.
On the other hand, he is now starting to come out and reveal what the CDC has always known about the hepatitis B vaccine being given to newborns, and that it does increase the rate of autism by something like 1,135%.
Out in a fully vaccinated group to health outcomes in an unvaccinated group. And CDC did that study in 1999. They brought in a team of scientists under a Belgian researcher named Thomas Verstraeten, and they looked at the data. They looked at children who had received the hepatitis vaccine within their first 30 days of life, and compared those children to children who had received the vaccine later or not at all. And they found an 1,135% elevated risk of autism among the vaccinated children. And it shocked them. They kept the study secret, and then they manipulated it through 5 different iterations to try to bury the link. And, we know how they did it. They got rid of all the older children, essentially, and just had younger children who were too young to be diagnosed. And they stratified the data, and they did a lot of other tricks. And all of those studies were the subject of that kind of trickery.
Wow.
Look, I like him. I have no illusions, though, that he fully appreciates individual freedoms and understands, the libertarian belief that states' rights and all that. But what he's doing within his, little circle, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree that we all need to wear, whatever and do all that for medical purposes, but all the other stuff he's doing, I think is fine.
I think it's really good. I think it's going to take a very, very long time to overcome so much of how our food is produced in this country. I think getting dyes out of our foods is low hanging fruit, but I think it's going to take a long time for him to address any of the other crap that's in our food. I think that I've also seen recently that he's come out and said that he thinks that mRNA vaccines are safe. I don't know. I can't verify that. I have not verified that. I've just seen it a couple of times pop up. I certainly hope not. I like the fact that he has put Dr. Malone on the
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got the guy that invented it, right?
exactly.
And
the
that
guy
guy's already come out.
has said that it's not safe. So,
Right.
you know, yeah.
Well, when you read Fauci's book, the real Anthony Fauci, I mean, he goes through the history of vaccines. He proves none of the vaccines have ever been,
Right.
double blind, placebo tested, or tested with a non-vaccinated group per a vaccinated group for obvious reasons, because it would prove that they weren't effective at all. Someone in the chat says, the Amish don't have any of these things because they don't get vaccinated, and that's absolutely true. And that actually was an unofficial study that some people did. They did compare the Amish with all, and they proved, the vaccines are horrible. But he's got a big mountain to climb doing those vaccines, and he might have to compromise along the way. I know Stu Peters came out with a video just fully attacking Kennedy, and I agree with Stu that Kennedy's proposal to have everybody have big government be able to monitor everything that's going on in your body. I mean, that's transhumanism. That's technocracy. That's where that is going. And yet, he just doesn't have his head screwed on right, or something's going on there. But when it comes to vaccines, it's such a big battle that he's going to have to, at some point, it's going to look like he compromises, because he might have to get to where he needs to go. So I'm willing to take some time and let him
do his thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Mike Parsons was the one that said that. That's the guy I'm trying to get on the show. Mike, you need to get a camera. I was going to get us together and kind of talk, see what you think, and then get him on the show. He's an interesting guy, no doubt. So, Mike, if you get a camera, we'll get you on. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, here's what we got to do. You got to get a camera. I said, everything else, we'll just send you the link. No problem, but you got to get a camera.
Right.
So, but yeah, he's an interesting dude, no doubt. I'm agreeing with him. I mean, look, you got to put these people in their positions. You're talking about the federal government, and he gets in there. He's been in there, 6 months now or whatever. I mean, people are in his ear telling him, these mRNA things are fine, and he's getting this, this chatter. And I mean, no one can really totally overcome that.
right.
Look at most politicians. The only one I've ever seen was Ron Paul. He survived 17 years in complete, just evil quagmire, and he survived. He stuck to, he never took, but they called him Dr. No, because all of the lobbyists would come through and he'd say, no, no, no. And he was the only one. He survived 17 years in that Washington, D.C. quagmire, but most don't. Most do not.
But
That's why I never want to be a politician.
Talking about the CDC and talking about all of that, I mean, there has been, I guess, who was it? Dr. David Martin did an interview with Joel Webbin talking about the fact that a year ago there was another gamed pandemic that they were planning to release, and they gamed it for July the 4th, 2025, which is just a couple of days away.
Dr. Martin.
Yeah, Dr. David Martin.
He's the bald guy that just knows everything about patents and
all of that,
vaccines and bioweapons. I mean, he is the authority. I mean, he speaks to governments about it. And he's come out and he said, hey, look, they're planning this attack on 4th of July. No one in our government's taking it seriously. No one's doing anything about it. And we think as Americans that, like, surely they won't do that again. Like, it was so horrible. We all realize it now. Surely they're not going to do it again. No, they'll do it again.
Mhm.
They'll keep running the same playbook until you hang them.
Yep.
Until you
Yep.
put them in jail or you kill them publicly for treason and for murder. They're going to keep doing it.
Right.
So at some point, we're going to have to really put our foot down on this crap, or it's just going to keep going. I don't know what it's going to take. Is it going to take your 8-year-old dying from some bioweapon for you to wake up? You know, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm always like, oh, it's going to take a lot to make that happen. I mean, another 9/11, it's going to, but I don't know. I'm on the fence about that because the internet, especially with X, I give a lot of credit to X and Elon for what he did. It's not just putting legacy media out of business, but it's also putting information in the hands of just day-to-day people that are just watching things, and as soon as they see something, they put it out. And yeah, there's a lot of garbage on there. You got to filter through that, and with AI, there's going to be a lot more. But I think with the free ability to share information is going to expose these things, and you're going to see less and less because they just can't survive in a world where people can come out and say these things. I mean, think about it. Like Nick Fuentes, the things he's saying on X, just 2 years ago, he couldn't have said those things.
Right.
Peterson, he wouldn't have existed. I mean, he's YouTube would have. I mean, you don't see him on YouTube. So I think it's helping, and I hope that we don't have another false flag. That we don't. And if we do, hopefully it's small and everyone sees through it and is like, okay, we've had enough. It's going to be interesting to see how God plays this out because, I mean, we're seeing the movement that people are finally saying, yes, the Israeli government is not a good entity. They're corrupt. Hopefully the Israeli people will, vote in someone that is more less Talmudic or less, hell-bent on expanding their territory. Well, either way, people are gaining intelligence and seeing through a lot of these lies. And I see it all the time. I mean, I'm gaining followers on X every single day by just talking about the truth.
Right.
So, one more thing I wanted to share, in talking about freedoms, I think one of the freedoms that each state has is the ability to secede. And I have always, for a long time, believed that. I think, the United States, we would have never had a civil war if he let the South go. I think we would have come back and it would have been amicable. Slavery around the world was going away. America was the last holdout. But anyway, it says record high, 44% of Californians ready to secede from the U.S., with 50% of locals trusting Sacramento authorities more than federal government. Now that means, they trust Newsom, but that's okay. Look, let them go. Let California, if Californians want to secede from the United States, let them go. I think there'd be a perfect example of how a state run by Democrats would totally implode on itself. I think all the rest of the states could watch their demise and learn a lot.
I don't know. That would be a little bit risky. I mean, California is a big part of our economy. I think there are a lot of, like we talked about in the elections, there was some good evidence that supported they cheated so much that there's a much larger Republican base there than you think. So I don't know. I would like to see real elections there to show us, how many are conservative and who isn't. But if it's like 80% all communist crazy, then yeah, I would agree with you. But I don't think that's the case. So I think we kind of need to rescue California the best we can. But that's my
Well, yes, I've seen polls and maps showing that it's going more red. But if that's the case, then, and look, it's all these polls are, you can spin it one way or the other. I get it. And this YouGov poll may be one of those. But if that state going more red, how is it that 44% are ready to secede? Because they're supporting Newsom. Obviously, Newsom's telling them something, and they hate Trump. So I don't know. I don't hold out.
I don't trust the polling. I just don't trust the polling. There's nothing about California I trust, because they've got the higher levels of power, so they're able just to cheat and create all kinds of lies. So I don't know. Until I really know what the truth is in California, I can't really make a decision on that. But
anyway, I'd like just, Texas. There's been over the years that Texas could conceivably secede. If it gets bad enough, and I'll tell you, the first 4 years of Biden, I was like, man, I wish Texas would secede.
Yeah.
And there were times during the Obama administration, and when I campaigned for Ron Paul, that I just lost all hope, and I was like, man, we need states to start seceding.
Well, we need states to figure out the election. I mean, until we have addressed our election problems, we're done. As a country, we're done.
Which isn't Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to do that?
She's trying to do that with the census. But until we go back to paper ballots, we get these machines off, send them to the scrap heap. We have nothing on the internet, nothing that can be rigged, nothing that they can go in through the back door and jerry rig these votes that we count with full presence of everybody being counted right then and there. We're done. Our country is done. Our elections have been rigged for cycle upon cycle upon cycle.
Yeah, they caught China. China brought in all the mail-in ballots that were totally fraudulent. I mean, they've already proven the 2020 election was completely rigged. Of course, it's totally too late now. I mean, but
I don't think anybody denies that at this point. Well, sorry, there are people that deny it, but
and I think what is so frustrating is that all of this, I mean, it's just very quiet and in the background. Oh yeah, by the way, all you tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, you are actually right all along.
Yeah. Well, supposedly Trump's his administration is going to try to correct that over the next 3 years. We'll see what happens. We know Congress isn't going to address it. They're not going to talk about it. I think you're just going to get what you get. Unfortunately, I've heard people say, well, one of the fixes is getting rid of the Electoral College, which I think is totally insane.
No,
that is not the answer. Hopefully Trump won't go there, because that is not the answer. We don't need a full-on democracy in this.
No, we don't need a full-on simple majority democracy that goes against everything our founding fathers wanted in a constitutional republic.
Yeah,
of that concept, as a matter of fact.
I think
Canada would jump on board with being 51st state. Just sounds like they've been I don't know, man. It's kind of a mishmash, because some of them have just been entrenched with Marxism and communism and globalism, while others are just so sick and tired of it. They're praying for deliverance. That's another thing where I wish I really knew what the real numbers were in Canada, as far as how much of them are conservative and how much of them are not.
Yeah, you don't know. You would think that, but then this last election, you're like, what are they doing?
Mhm.
You know, it's crazy. I was trying to look up the amendment. I thought it was the 15th, but I don't think it is. Anyway, whatever the amendment is that gave the states the ability to vote democratically for the Senate and took the power away from your Congress people to vote the senators in, I think we should just get rid of that amendment. Absolutely. I think it would make the elections a lot better. The states do not need the power to elect the senators or the people in the states. We elect the congressmen who then elect the Senate. And that's the way it was up until it's not the 15th. I think it's the 16th. Anyway, somebody out there knows.
Right.
That amendment needs to go away. We need to get back to, we elect, because then you've got the power, that congressman that you elected, if they all get together and they say, this is who we want in the Senate, and the people say, no, we didn't want that, bud. Now you're not going to get reelected. We'll get somebody in there who's going to actually do what we want. So I think that's one of the big things that if you want fair, I mean, look, fair elections, yes, I agree. But overall, we've moved into this idea that democratic elections, that the majority vote is the way to go, is not it.
Right.
That's why we were founded as a republic.
Right.
Because all a majority vote means is that the minority loses.
Right.
And the individual loses every time. And that's not what we were founded on, and that's not what we're about. And we've moved into this area of, I talk to conservative, these people that call themselves conservative. My brother-in-law, oh yeah, we need to get rid of the electoral college. And I said, please explain that to me.
Yeah.
Well, and it was his whole pitch to me was because we need a democratic election. It's what the people want. And I said, until the people do something you don't like.
Right.
So I think we got to get away from that mentality. And it's not just about fair elections, but it's about lose this idea that mob rules, because that's what it is.
Right.
Anyway, we've got
a few minutes. I don't know. You got anything else to show, or maybe talk about?
That's all I've got.
Comments.
Yeah, I was looking at the comments. Let's see.
Yes, Mike. Yes, you are correct. The new variant that has been named is the Nimbus variant. That is very true. That apparently is, yeah.
So what I was told, or what Martin is proposing, is that they're planning on the 4th of July through the fireworks, throwing them out there and having them
explode.
Yeah, and everyone breathing them in and stuff. So I really hope that doesn't happen, but because of course they're going to blame Muslims or something like that. It's not going to be shown for what it really is, but
yeah. Yeah, Mike Parsons, that's right. The 17th Amendment, and if you notice, the 17th Amendment was passed just less than 10 years, or right after the Federal Reserve was created. But people back then, you had a couple of newspapers. You didn't really have a full view, and you accepted things. And you had a lot going behind the scenes that you didn't really understand or know about. Thankfully, the internet's fixing some of that. But yes, the 17th Amendment, that's Mike.
Yeah.
That's what we need to get rid of.
Amen. I'm just going through some of the comments. I know someone said that Candace and Tucker, those are the only.
Candace and Fuentes.
And Fuentes are the only people that are kind of
not compromised.
Yeah. So I can stand Candace when she gets on her Catholic thing, but other than that, she's pretty spot on just about everything.
Yeah. Did you hear the one she talked about where Trump reached out to her?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I wonder if that's, well, I don't doubt it. Number one, I think it's pretty funny. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, Candace was holding this secret that the Trump administration actually contacted her and said, look, if you just dial it back on attacking and exposing Macron, you know, and that his father is his, you know, because it's really hurting. It's really hurting our deals. And I don't know why, but that's what's going on.
That's funny.
Oh, that is just such a sick thing.
Mhm.
I mean, you talk about a dog king. Now, we've talked about what a dog king is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when a feudalist king would come and conquer a people to fully humiliate them, they would get an animal, whether it's a dog or a donkey, and they'd put the crown on it and says, you know, you're going to answer to this, you know, just to humiliate you. And, you know, that's what they did with Biden, just to totally humiliate us. And you look at France and you've got a guy that's pretending to be a woman. Of course, you know, we went through that with Michelle Big Mike Obama. So it's not completely unique, but it's just disgusting. These freaks that are compromised when they're young, they're groomed as globalists, and, you know, they're molested and they're put in these horrific relationships, and they're just completely manipulated, completely, to do whatever the globalists want them to do. And it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
We do need more Christians in politics. I know you've talked about, you know, I'd never step foot in there because it's so, but no, we really do. We need more Christians in politics. And I'm talking about real Christians that know their Bible, not Zionists, not useful idiots.
Right.
I'm talking about real Christians.
We need more preterists in you know.
Yeah.
I agree. Christians, look, you know, I was talking to a futurist. I went to lunch with a guy that I really like. He's a futurist, and I wanted to talk to him about, because he studies the Bible. He's a humble guy, and I wanted to understand why he believes that Christ hasn't returned, because he's so spot on other doctrines. And we had a couple of meetings, but one of the things he said, well, what do you get if Christ has already returned? And I said, well, one of the things is you're not this dispensationalist that thinks, oh, I'm not going to get involved in politics or anything. As Christians now, we should get involved in those things. Yeah. This isn't some rock that's going to burn up and I'm going to get off of it, so I'm not going to do anything. You have to take the power that you have in you today, the Holy Spirit, and go stand up and be that one that gets involved. That's how you make change. That's
be a Nehemiah. Be a Nehemiah. Yeah. And go in there, and if someone's where they shouldn't be, lay hands on them. And I'm not talking about it in a charismatic way. That's not what Nehemiah did with that one compromiser that was getting in his way. He beat the crap out of him. I mean, at some point, we need some real godly Christian men that will really mix it up politically and physically if they have to. I mean, that's just how this country is going to get taken back if there's any hope for it. And things will have to get really bad for them to get better.
Exactly. And you know what? If the United States breaks up into different countries, I'm okay with that too, because I know where I'll be.
Yeah. Amen.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're up.
Answer this one. Someone wanted to know what a good commentary.
There are no commentary sets that are preterist. You just have to like, there are books on the book of Revelation, like my friend Don Preston, Who Is This Babylon? There are other preterist commentaries on the book of Revelation. I've done a commentary, and I'm producing a book on Matthew 24 and 25. I know Tony Denton's done a commentary on Hebrews, really good from a preterist perspective, but because he's an Arminian, not so good there. You just have to kind of look around to see what preterist has done a commentary on a specific book. There's no commentary set that I know of. So
No, I've got Ligadier Ministry. I bought a ESV years ago. It is good. Now there's no dispensationalist stuff in there, but I think R.C. Sproul and a couple of other folks that he brought in to do that Bible did a great job.
Yeah,
and it's the Reformation Study Bible.
Yeah,
I've used it for years, and I think it's great.
that's what I have too, right here, Reformation Study Bible. The problem is that he let a lot of amillennialists do a lot of the books, and so there's not a whole lot of partial preterism even in there, even though Sproul and Matheson, who were the editors, are hardcore partial preterists.
Sproul didn't get there till later in life, but when he got there, he wouldn't talk about it too much, but he was definitely there.
No, he was asked why he wasn't a full preterist, and he said, "Look around, look at all the people I employ." That's just not a good answer. All right, folks. Well, I guess we'll see you next week. And I don't know, babe, you're going to work, and she's a travel nurse, so she's going to work. I'll be
back Sunday.
I'll be writing my book, Matthew 21 to 25 fulfilled. Making a lot of.
I was going to say the stuff you're posting on X is really good.
Yeah,
you need to check it out.
We may be working on a partner debate here between Jeremiah and Sam Frost. It's not the debate I wanted, and they know that. That's why they threw it at us, because I've rejected it in the past. That was their way of, because before it was Jeremiah and Eli. Eli was a partial preterist, and Jeremiah was a amillennialist. And I said, well, you guys keep doing these shows telling us how heretical full preterism is. Why don't you debate me and Don? And the reason why they wouldn't do that is because when you take what partial preterists say and take what amillennials say, it actually forms full preterism. And I can prove that in a debate. That's why they don't want that combination in an actual debate. So they came back and said, oh, well, the partial preterist, he's too busy. He can't do it. But, Sam will do it, because they're both amillennialists and they don't have to deal with the time text.
Right.
And the admission. So that'll be interesting. We may be debating them. So I'll keep you informed on that. And I don't think that there's anything. What do you got going this week?
Oh, not much. Just living the dream, man. Living the dream.
Living the dream. Living the dream.
I'm gonna cook out and shoot some fireworks and live the dream, man.
All right. All right. All right, folks. Well, Lord bless you, and we will see you next week.
Yes, sir. See you guys. Thanks, everybody.